Guys, look what I bought. Tell me this isn't the perfect emote. I mean, it's literally just me chilling with my back bling. And he even pokes it around. No, I'm convinced this was made for me. Are you gonna be able to take me seriously as I sit here in a wooden barrel and take a bath? Probably not, but consider it a metaphor for how seriously I take this game. Which is not at all. Hey everyone, this is Syntax, and today we are all gathered here collectively to mourn the loss of my one and only hub, Abstract Heights. You know, I'm just now realizing that I never actually released the code for this to the public. So if you want to go check it out for yourself, there you go. Go nuts. Anyway, as some of you may already know, earlier this year I decided to go against my better judgment and commit 3 months of my existence to building and perfecting what was my first ever and is now my last ever hub. This hub was my in-game attempt at representing eco-brutalism as best I could. Now, if you don't know what eco-brutalism is, you can think of it as 2 clashing architectural styles. Brutalism referring to the brutal human forces in buildings, and eco referring to the nature incorporated in such buildings. I started working on this thing in the beginning of June, and after several months of meticulously placing props, going through dozens of different designs, and being unable to move forward in certain spots because of how uninspired I was, I finally finished it. This took everything that I had. All of the building techniques that I learned in the years prior were being used to construct this hub. I was even learning new techniques in the middle of building it. So when it was finally finished, I was so happy with the final product, and I was so excited to submit it. And it just recently got denied. Now, I'll get to why it was denied in just a minute, but before we move on, I want to make sure you guys understand that I'm not making this video to complain about being denied. As a matter of fact, I expected this to happen. The point of this video was really for me to explain why I disagreed with some of the reasons they gave me for my denial, and of course to hear what you guys have to say. This is all actually pretty funny because I specifically remember really early on in the process explaining to a couple friends that were in my party while I was building it how I knew it was gonna be denied. I just didn't know what it was gonna be denied for. And sure enough, lo and behold, we now have an answer. Everyone watching this video right now, I want you to take a few seconds and come up with a reason you think this hub was denied. Do you have a reason? Have you gotten one? Why are you taking so long? What are you doing? Anyway, now that you all have your own reasons as to why you think the hub was denied, let's see how many of you were actually correct. On the morning of November 2nd, I received this denial email, and after scrolling down just a little bit, I saw that the reason it was denied was because the environment needs improving. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, that is an incredibly broad reason. It sounds like it could apply to literally anything in my hub. Luckily, someone from Epic Developer Relations reached out with specific feedback on what regarding the environment needed improving. So what I'm gonna do is read you guys the message they sent me that contains the specific reasons on how the environment needs improving. I'm gonna give you my honest opinion regarding those reasons, and then I want you guys in the comments to explain whether or not you agree with what they're saying. The message reads as follows. We will be rejecting it, but I did want to share some things with you. They love the tops of the buildings, but you have to look up to see it. Also, it did not feel like a real space. Try to make the area feel like a street and you were surrounded by abstract buildings. For the spawn area, the art team does not like spawning in a pit, so have it at the same level as the rest of the hub. Feel free to make changes and resubmit if you wish. Reading that message for the first time was kind of like being punched in the mouth without actually being punched in the mouth. But on the bright side of everything, according to the Epic employee, the art team quote unquote loved the tops of the buildings, which is fantastic because I worked incredibly hard on them. Unfortunately for me, them loving the tops of the buildings wasn't enough for it to get pushed through, and their main reasons for not moving forward with my submission included their inability to see the tops of the buildings without looking up, spawning in a pit, and it feeling like it wasn't a real space. When you boil this down, there's really only 3 points of feedback, and of those 3 points that I just listed, the one that makes the most sense to me, the one that I can kind of get behind and be like, okay, yeah, that's understandable, is the fact that they didn't really like spawning in a pit. I honestly just kind of played myself with this one because as I was building it, there were multiple creators who have had plenty of featured hubs in the past explaining to me that the art team is not gonna like spawning in a pit. And like an idiot, I decided to go against their advice because I was so blinded by the fact that I thought it looked really good. And of course, now I'm paying for it. And even though there are 4 sets of staircases and 4 sets of lily pads that not only assist with the player leaving the pit, but allow for you to get to your island portals quicker, I can understand how spawning at the lowest point in the hub and having everything else be at a higher point is an unattractive feature. So I do get it. It's very reasonable feedback. So yeah, I get it. Raise the center. It doesn't make sense that the player spawns in a pit, but past that feedback, maybe you guys can help me understand what they're trying to say, because I'm still confused. When I first was reading through the message, I was hung up on their critique regarding their inability to see the tops of the buildings without looking up, because I was just thinking to myself, like, yeah, that's how buildings work. You have to look up to see the tops of them. How is that a negative thing? You're just describing general interaction with any building ever. Have you ever been downtown in a big city? Or like stayed in a hotel? Or, oh, I don't know, stood in front of Epic's headquarters? Newsflash, you have to look up to see the tops of all those buildings. So I just don't understand why looking up is such a bad thing. Like, that's how buildings work. And you know, maybe they're referring to the fact that when you join the hub, the first thing you see are these sort of bland and repetitive windows. But one, that's not the only thing that's visible. That's why I put those staircases on the sides connecting the buildings, because they break up those window patterns. But two, you really don't have to look up that far to see the tops of the buildings. So I just don't understand this point at all. The scariest thing about this feedback is the implication that the art team either wants me to move the buildings down or move them back so that you can see the tops of them without having to look up. And in case you guys weren't already aware, these buildings are made of so many different pieces, so it would take no less than several hours to move them all. And at that point, I would just have to redesign the entire hub. So there's just no way I would be able to pull that off. Their statement regarding the hub feeling like it wasn't a real space is hilarious to me, because this structure that I built is not only inspired by, but it is based off of a building that already exists in Amsterdam. This is a real place. It's an actual building. These pictures popping up on your screen right now were meant to represent the plans for the building back in like 2020, and this is an actual in-person photo that my friend sent to me while they were in Amsterdam of the building. It's a real place. What, you thought I came up with this design on my own? Are you insane? The icing on the cake was how they told me in order to make it feel more like a real space, you should be on a road and it should feel like you're surrounded by abstract buildings, which, I mean, there's the abstract buildings and there's the road that runs through the entire hub. So, like, that's already happening. What do you want from me? But seriously, the fact that I based this off of a real space and now they want me to go and make it feel more like a real space is just so classic. And you know, honestly, I wish I could get these 3 months back. I mean, what a waste of time, man. What a shame. What a shame. At the end of the day, I did genuinely enjoy working on this hub, and I'm super happy with the final result. I think it's an excellent display of what I'm capable of as a creator. But if you're out there and you're working on a hub, you should consider sticking to what has already been done. Don't try to stray from the path and do something unique and special and something that's never been done before, because you're more than likely going to fail. The days of trying to impress Epic with your builds are long gone. You should take what you know has worked in the past, put your own little spin on it, and use that to try to succeed in this game, because trying to be unique has almost never paid off for anybody. On a more positive note, before I end today's video, I just want to remind you guys that in all activities requiring some amount of effort or skill, there will be times where you give it everything you have. You put in your absolute best efforts, and your best just isn't good enough. And that's okay. I put everything that I had into this hub. This is my absolute best work. And in this case, it just wasn't good enough, which is okay. I'm gonna press forward as I always do. It's important to remember though, that you should do everything you possibly can about what's in your control and embrace what's not, because sometimes there's just nothing you can do. I might end up trying to make some changes and resubmitting it here in the near future, but for anyone who is wondering about the status of the hub, just know you probably won't be seeing it in-game anytime soon. But anyway, guys, I think that is everything that I have for you today. I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, this has been Syntax. Later.